Hi, my name is Steve Clare. I am an Associate Director of Academic and Membership Affairs at the NCAA. As part of my role in AMA, I help support IPP, or the Institutional Performance Program. This webinar will provide you with an update on enhancements to the IPP data management system for the spring of 2020. This overview slide lists the enhancements that we're going to walk through with you today. Let's jump right into the first enhancement, which will allow the individual end user of IPP to print directly from any of the charts in IPP. Previously, the end user would have to upload information to a separate work environment, either cutting and pasting the data and moving it to a Word document, PowerPoint slide, or the like, using a screen grab tool or something similar. Those typically resulted in not only additional steps, but sometimes formatting issues when you tried to print that out. So here on the slide, you can see a picture of the IPP homepage banner, the top banner, and then we just chose academics and the APR data indicator, and you can see in the green circle to the right of each, in the top right of each data indicator chart, the print button. You'd simply print on that, and it will allow you to print out the charts either that are defaulted there or if you've created them with additional peer groups. And we'll show you that in the system here in a few minutes. That's the print function that has been added. Okay, the next enhancement is an addition to the peer group selection page and will allow IPP users to filter a by sport peer group by participants in the previous year's NCAA championship. For example, you can select all teams which participated in last year's NCAA softball championship, which you can see here in the red box in the middle of the slide. Once that sport is chosen from the drop-down menu, you'd simply check the box that indicates show championship qualifiers, and the previous year's qualifiers would come up. From there, the user can continue to filter their peer group, for example, by public or private schools, by level of the athletics department budget, number of sports sponsored, student body enrollment, etc. So you can narrow that peer group even further than just the championship field. Okay, a related enhancement is another addition to the peer selection page, and that is given the end user the ability to filter a peer group based on the RPI or net rankings. Both of these enhancements, so both the championship selection peer group filter and the RPI net rankings filter, are limited to team sports. And in the case of RPI and net rankings, that's limited to those sports which use either the RPI or the net. So basketball, which now uses the net ranking, and then baseball, softball, hockey, soccer, lacrosse, and volleyball all employ the RPI. For those sports that don't have either an RPI or a net ranking, you can go to ncaa.com, and we have the link here on this particular slide. Choose a sport, and then choose the rankings that are used in that sport. Now, going back one slide, you wouldn't be able to find those teams ranked 51 to 100, 100 to 150, and so on, because most sports that don't use the RPI probably only rank a top 20 or a top 25. But you can find those particular schools from the previous year's rankings and create a peer group that way. Let me just show you what that looks like. On NCAA.com, here is the top banner on the home page. In the green oval here, you can see the drop-down menu of all of the NCAA-sponsored sports. By example, we chose women's water polo. That takes us to this banner on the women's water polo page. And from there in the green oval, you would just choose the rankings to find those particular rankings. And there may be more than one in a particular sport, where there might be a media poll and a coach's poll, for example, that are used in ranking teams. You would find those on NCAA.com. Pick your sport and then pick or click on the link that says rankings. So let's toggle over to IPP itself to see if we can show you these first handful of enhancements that we've talked about in the presentation. Okay, so I have in my test institution, ABC University, I have pulled up, the APR, single year APR data chart. The first the first enhancement that we talked about was the print function. You can see that here. You would simply click on this print button and print out the charts that you see below on the slide. I'm going to now go to the peer group creation page. From there, we're going to be able to show you the second two enhancements were addition to the peer group selection function of IPP. And we'll start with the previous year's championship selection. And as that is pulled up, just a note that both for the championship qualifier and the RPI net rankings, those will be updated each summer. So if you're looking for the current year and you have a fall sport and a winter sport, know that those will be static throughout the academic year, so that a fall of 2020 sport would employ the 2019 NCAA championship until then the summer of 21, in which we would update it to be the fall of 2020 championship field. Okay, so in the peer selection page, if I were to click, and I think in our example we use women's softball, so I'll find that in the drop-down menu, and then I'm going to click Show Championship Qualifiers. And then let's filter that a little bit further. Let's call that Division I, and let's just call up any private schools. And if I select all of those private schools that were in the softball field, I'm going to see that there were 16 Division I institutions, private institutions, that played in the 2019 NCAA softball championship. And then to show you over here, if I were to click off of the championship qualifiers, maybe I want to aspire to maybe the next tier of softball schools, I can click under softball 51 to 100. That's going to give me the RPI ranking of 51 to 100 from the previous year. And then if I select all, that's going to show me that there were 10 private institutions ranked 51 to 100 in the RPI ranking in 2019 in women's softball. And then finally, we click off of all of these filters. Let's just go to women's water polo for a minute to show you that if the sport, in this case water polo, does not employ an RPI or the net ranking, you wouldn't be able to use that peer selection over here on the right-hand side. So those are our first three enhancements in the system. Let me toggle back to the presentation now for the next couple of enhancements. Okay, the next enhancement is going to be covered in the next few slides, and it gives the IPP user the ability to upload data directly from IPP graphs into a spreadsheet. Previously, a user would have to copy and paste information or use a screen grab tool or something like that, just like we talked about with the print functionality, and that led to formatting issues. It's also additional steps that if you're creating an extensive report in IPP, consumes an additional amount of time. And so this allows you to directly upload the data from IPP into your own work environment, whether that's an Excel spreadsheet or something else. If I go to the next slide, you can see that in each of the charts, you would select download CSV as an option, and that is automatically going to move the data from the IPP to a spreadsheet where you can then analyze, create additional presentation and reporting features to better tell your story in your own report created on campus. Again, converting graph to table data, which then can be saved in Excel or another work environment. On the slide here, we just did a screen grab from Excel to show you what that would look like from the table data in IPP. And now let's see if we can do it in the system itself. So I'm going to go back to IPP. And I'm going to go back to my APR, my APR chart. So my single year APR for ABC University. And just remind you that you can get the raw data by clicking on the table view of any of the data indicators in IPP. You could then grab this information, copy and paste it into a spreadsheet, but it's additional steps. Again, formatting issues were being run into by not only the staff, but end users on campus. And so by going back to the graph and then going to the 3 horizontal bars and clicking download CSV, that's going to go right to my computer's downloads folder, which I can then go find and see that it's downloaded that into a spreadsheet for me. Let me go back to the PowerPoint here and show you once again what that looks like if you were to go to Excel. This is that chart right here from Excel, which you can then use to create pie graphs, bar graphs, all of the nice functions of working in a spreadsheet environment are now at your fingertips simply by clicking that download CSV button. Okay, this last slide highlights a couple of additional enhancements to IPP. The first now allows conferences to create peer groups of less than 8 institutions, as long as those peer groups consist only of the conference's multi-sport members. So you can't bring in an affiliate member to a peer group of less than 8, or somebody who's not one of your conference members. So this is going to enable the conference end user to group its members for better and more narrow, more focused comparisons, even if the groups have less than 8 peer institutions. So for example, if you have public and private institutions in your conference, but don't have 8 of one or both, you can now make peer groups to compare those groups separately. If you have FBS and FCS schools, or FCS and Division I subdivision schools, you can now form peer groups of less than 8 of your members to compare separately those 2 groups' data. Again, conferences only, and only your own member institutions in each conference. We also have updated chart tooltips, and we'll show you that in a minute in the system, but this helps compare multiple peer groups or sports on the same graph. And then finally, although it's not brand new, we do have academic major selection data, which has been added into IPP in the 2019-2020 academic year. And let's show you those last couple of enhancements in the system really quickly. Go back to IPP. And here's my APR chart. This is just the overview chart. So let's go, well, let's just do it by sport. And you can see ABC University is going to have 10 or 12 different sports. Some of you that have more than 20 or 25 sports at your institution understand you're going to have a really crowded graph. But the updated tooltips allow me to go right into the middle of a crowded part of the graph and see not only the year that I'm looking at, but it highlights the sport that I'm looking at, as well as the single year APR, the piece of data that's being highlighted. For the conference user, this is going to help you if you have 10, 12, 14, 15 members in your conference and you're looking at your data overall, or all of your school's data on the same chart. This is, again, going to enable you to focus pretty quickly on what data point that you're hovering over. And then the last enhancement, again, if I go to academics and then I go to the middle column, I'm going to see all of the academic major selection data that is now included in IPP. As I go back to the PowerPoint for the last time, I just want to thank you for your time in listening to this webinar, and really let you know IPP is a resource for all of you. It's designed to help you do your work more efficiently on campus. If you have any questions about any of the enhancements in the system highlighted in the webinar, or anything else in IPP, including maybe data you'd like to see us include, maybe data that is not worth including, please give us a call, send us an email. We'd be happy to talk through your thoughts about anything related to the data management system. Once again, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.